What up, optimizers? Here we are today with my man, Shawn Stevenson. We're going to get dirty. We're going to get down in them guts. Get all up in them guts. We're talking about digestion today, people. Get your head out of the gutter. It's early in the morning. Actually, it may not be for you. You may be in the middle of the day, maybe the middle of the night. Who knows? That's the beauty of podcasts. That's why we love it. So our man over here, Orlando, was saying,
oh no,
and he's known as the Pizza Man. You know, he has a pizza podcast. He's got a pizza blog. He has pizza pictures on his walls. He draws them, doodles them, and I catch them all the time on the podcast.
He lives in a shell.
Yeah, exactly.
Write the name on the folder and a heart. And the whole thing.
And you realize, oh shit, I can't have dairy. It fucks me up.
It's funny. It's like I eat about a large pizza a week minimum, and
minimum. What's
minimum?
Maximum?
Right,
2 large pizzas a week.
That's maximum. You've done better than that.
It depends on what's going on in life, but
So is pizza like a stress food for you then?
I eat because I live, and I live
it's a
because
taste
I eat.
good food. It's a not the Beatles of food.
Yeah.
So,
Wow,
That's
just
harsh.
dropping bombs, throwing
but-
uppercuts and jabs along the way. We won't touch that. We'll just carry on.
it's funny, as I've started to work here, I've started to eat a lot, cleaner, and I realized during the early part of the week when I'm on schedule and I'm working out and I'm eating 100% clean, how the body is supposed to work, how you're supposed to feel after a meal, how when you relieve yourself, how it's supposed to come out and what it's supposed to look like. And then now when I do that whole week of good eating, and then on Friday night when I pound down that full large pizza.
All right, so describe us your Friday night pizza, and then Sean's gonna break it down, and we'll figure out what's happening.
So it's me getting home, relaxing on the couch, getting a whole large, and just
From where?
It depends. I get them from everywhere. If I have to go delivery, I usually go with a Dirty Domino's.
Dirty Domino's.
Ooh,
the new Domino's.
The Brooklyn, New
Were you
York.
with the old Domino's or the new Domino's?
I'm with the new Domino's.
Yeah.
But that's if I choose to go that route, I try to get better pizza like Via 313 here in Austin or something like that. But sometimes I just need it quick and I can finish it in 15 minutes or less. I literally chow it down before my brain can tell me that I am full, and it's almost immediate. Almost immediate, where I'm looking across the room, and I need to make a trip.
Wow.
So what's happening? What's happening to our man over here?
Wow.
What's happening?
He's becoming a Ninja Turtle, first of all.
Well, I do have green shorts.
Yeah, we've been
The
debating
turn.
about that.
Yeah, your sage
green shorts.
Ninja Turtle
or
green.
seaweed green.
Seafoam sage cedar green shorts.
Yeah, I mean, dairy, the bottom line is it just depends on the individual. Some people have a genetic mutation, actually, to continue to consume dairy after babyhood. Mm-hmm. Humans are not wired up to be that way. But not to say that we can't enjoy the vastness of dairy, but especially when it's pasteurized, homogenized, glued
it's
glued
real
to a
cheese, but it's
pizza.
not real cheese.
Right, yeah. You're probably going to have some problems. But even higher quality, raw milks and things like that can cause some people issues. One of the big things is we can start with just understanding that there's going to be a lot of antigens, right? Anti-genes that are in this formula that's coming from a cow's titty, right? And your body's going to produce some antibodies to kind of try to balance out because it's a lot coming in. And chances are that pizza is probably from thousands of different cows' titty milk, right? So it's going to hit your immune system up,
I've ever had.
right? And here's the thing is that most of your immune system is located in your gut. A lot of people don't get that. It's kind of hard to even rationalize, but it's basically like they need to be there front and center because through evolution, if you put something in your mouth, it could kill you. Our ancestors tried to eat everything, I'm sure. We were just talking about, horse shit last night, literally horse shit. And just, so humans have tried to eat everything. So your immune
Don't
system,
try that. It's not good. Ancestors have tried it, failed. They moved on.
But your immune system needs to be right there, front line, to make sure that you don't die, right? So upwards of 80% of your immune system is located in your gut. And dairy is just one of those foods. It's also known as one of the top autoimmune triggers, right? So along with wheat for a lot of people and beans, but this is not everybody, but dairy is definitely, from me, my clinical perspective, working with 1,000 people, it's the number one thing that tends to cause digestive distress automatically for
Yeah.
people. Whereas like wheat can take some time because of activating something called zonulin, which starts to pull your stomach lining apart. But dairy's a little bit more harsh. And also, last thing is, if you just see the like it sticks to the paper. You
It
know,
does.
like
When it cools down, it becomes like a full solid, and you can peel it off.
that's
like
not
little
so
gummies.
good. Yeah, I mean, your body
So
has
that's not so good.
your body has a hard time trying to break that down for sure. You know, and you are what you eat. You know, you hear this, but no, it's really more so you are what you digest.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of that stuff
So
you're not even gonna break
what's the
down.
difference? Because like, I mean, if you grow up eating a lot of dairy, like I grew up drinking milk, that's why I
Right.
probably have these beautiful teeth. But you know, I don't remember having.
That's not a fact. Also, fact check just came in. I got it in my earphone, and that's not a fact. So we'll move on.
Well, that's what I was
from
told when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't remember any time where having a glass of milk in the morning would ever bother me.
Right.
It just seems as I've grown older, that's when it's really started. I mean, is that a real thing? Is that something that just kids' bodies can just process it better than adults? Or
Well, definitely there's a big change right now because, you know, I don't know. We're gonna get a little personal here.
All
but
right, let's do it.
Did you breastfeed? Do you know?
I don't think so.
Do you breastfeed now?
Definitely not.
I'm just kidding. But so you don't think you were breastfed? You don't know?
I don't think so. Obviously, I don't remember.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna go ask my mom. Hey, mom, do you remember this? No. Yeah, I think we're
learning a lot.
I think
actually.
I think we're a formula family. As a lot of Latin
Yeah,
American.
a lot of people in our generation, you know,
Yeah.
kind of switched over because
Yeah.
we were led to believe that the mother's milk was inadequate. But here's the thing: is that breast milk is kind of like a formatting disc for your immune system.
Okay.
Right? So there's a lot of the natural antigens and antibodies that are going to be produced in immune system kind of formatting that's going to come from your mom, especially that first milk, you know, the colostrum. So if you're not getting that, your immune system it's sort of not online, right? You know, so possibly consuming some dairy early on is going to maybe help, you know, in some ways, but for other people it can really screw them up. You know, it just depends on the person. But now today, I mean, there's so many immune triggers. So you're already consumed, you know, you're like walking around in a bubble of just crazy shit, you know, so your body is just kind of on high alert already. So now you bring in some fake homogenized glow in the dark milk, you know, from the pizza you ate from Domino's, then it's probably going to be a faster trigger, you know. And also, you know, the human body is just super resilient, period. You know, you can quote get away with a lot of stuff. That doesn't mean it's the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, and somebody's telling, oh, you know, this is helping your bones and your teeth. That's not really true at all. You know, dairy's actually shown. Here's the interesting thing. So we're told that our bones are made. You know, we need calcium for
Yeah,
bones,
exactly.
right?
That's all. Like, where else are you gonna get calcium from milk? That's
This is the
what
thing.
People don't realize.
Calcium is the end product, right? There's a study, and anybody can just go to Dr. Google and ask, you know, any of the stuff that I say. But fascinating study. People who take calcium supplements have a 30% greater incidence of heart disease.
Oh wow.
All right. It's because calcium is an end product and it can lead to calcification, which you don't want to happen in your arteries, right? So also consumption of dairy, homogenized, pasteurized dairy, same thing, leads to greater incidences of heart disease because it's an end product. You don't want the calcium as an end product. You want the things that create calcium. So that's going to be things like silica and magnesium. These two things biologically transmutate and become your bone, right? Those are like the young energies. Calcium is like dinosaur bones, right? It's like you're consuming like fossil fuels or something. That's probably not sexy. It's probably not a good idea, right? So it's just a lot of miseducation with all of this stuff, you know, and so people are like guzzling milk, think they're going to get, you know, super healthy and have great bones, but oftentimes it'll do the opposite. But again, it still boils down to you as an individual because you might have the genetic mutation to actually do well with dairy.
And one of the big issues I'll talk to a lot of people who will have a bunch of issues with milk, and then they'll make some agreement with the local dairy farmer and drink raw milk, and all of a sudden they're fine. You know, kids who have asthma, and then
Right.
all of a sudden they'll go find somebody with some raw milk. Not only will they start feeling better, but their asthma will get better. And, the problem is once you pasteurize, homogenize, it's like saying, yeah, olive oil is good for you, but it's not when you fry it. You know, it changes the structure, changes the nature.
Wait, what did you say?
Your body's
Olive oil, wait. You can't go, oil. Wait, tell me about the olive oil thing again real quick.
Well, it's not only the substance, but it's what happens to the substance. So at a certain heat, and like most of these oils are really good for you, in the natural form, like raw olive oil.
Is that why you choose coconut oil, because it has a higher burn rate or something like that?
Coconut oil has a good smoke point. So does olive oil, though. They both have pretty reasonable ones. If you really want like a high smoke point, you go with grapeseed oil. But as soon as it reaches a certain threshold, the fat in there is going to oxidize, and then all of a sudden it becomes toxic to the body at that point. Right. It becomes harmful, whereas underneath that threshold, it's really helpful. Same with dairy. As soon as you pasteurize, homogenize, which is basically blasting it with either really high pressure or really high heat, it changes the structure of the milk itself, and then it becomes even more difficult to digest. And by more difficult to digest, a whole host of problems start to come up. You start to get inflammation. These pro-inflammatory cytokines start to go systemic throughout the whole body. And not only through the whole body, then they start to travel up through the blood-brain barrier, and that's why you get this kind of the itis, this post huge meal fog where you're just sitting around like, I can't fucking think, I can't do anything. Where's the coffee? Where's the alpha brain? I got to dig myself out of this hole I'm in. It's because all of the inflammation you created in your gut is now going system wide and affecting your brain.
Let's be clear on something too. Dairy is actually a high carbohydrate food. Okay. A lot of people, like, and me, myself included, I always thought it's where I'm going to get a good source of protein, right? And if you're consuming like full fat milk, you're getting a lot of fat. Yeah, that's in there, but this is mainly a carbohydrate based food, right? So it's like liquid sugar. And that's another big issue with people having these kind of inflammatory responses, or the bacteria in your body just going crazy because of the lactase that you're consuming, right? So it's the milk sugar. And so if you don't have that enzyme to break down that lactase, the bacteria they're just gonna go bananas in your gut, and they're gonna have a party, and they're gonna create gas, right? Or they're going to push the evacuation button, right? Which is probably what happens to you, right? And it's so violent. It's another one of those issues. It's probably the response from the milk sugar as well. And check this out. I just pulled this up again, Dr. Google. 2006, a study published in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology found that children who drank raw milk had significantly less instances of asthma, eczema, and hay fever than those who drank pasteurized milk. Raw milk cut histamine by more than 50%.
And histamine is an inflammation response, and that's what asthma is as well. So you're lowering systemic inflammation, and then all of a sudden these inflammation-related, conditions start to lessen as well. I know I was just in Sedona, and we had they have a really good store there, and I was able to get raw goat milk cheddar. Right. And goat milk has another advantage as well. And I believe it's because the molecules actually of lactose or whatever that's in the goat milk are much smaller. It's just completely structured differently, a lot more similar to human milk than bovine milk. So it's already easier. And then you combine that with making it raw, so it hasn't been pasteurized and it hasn't been either heated or pressured or restructured. And so that cheese, I can go pretty hard on that cheese and not have a problem, because it's like 2 steps above regular Domino's mozzarella.
Mozzarella.
Whatever that is. But yeah, so you might be able to get away with it. You just might have to start cooking your own pizzas.
Well, I do know how to cook my own pizza, so that's good. But I mean, you're saying if I can just find some better quality cheese, I might.
Yes, that is a huge first step.
Better time.
And also just make sure you're taking some enzymes. Use the Digestive always when you have a questionable meal, especially with dairy. Yeah. We had a little dairy last night when we had dinner, and I just asked him for some Digestive, and I'm straight, because I don't respond very well to dairy of all things. And I had a history of, I grew up as one of those kids with asthma, like the 3 inhalers or whatever, and I haven't had an incident in almost 15 years. Well, no, let me take that back, 10 years. Because when I kind of transformed my own health, it was kind of like really level 1. I still had the hay fever, allergies, asthma. And when I pulled dairy out, it did it for me. That was the one thing that really caused problems. And you'll notice too, if you just want to kind of sense if you're sensitive to dairy or not, is kind of like more of a mucusy thing going on in your in your throat. You'll start to notice like I've got a little bit more mucus. And dairy is known as like more of a mucus producing food, and it's an immune response as well. And so this is one of the big things that, if I'm working with children or adults that have asthma, I'll pull dairy out first thing, because of that mucus formation. But again, it just depends on the person. Some people might do, like in this study, the kids actually did better. Not all of them, but if because dairy it's a really attractive food. And here's why it's so attractive. Queso morphines, right? Queso
There's
morphines.
drugs in them cheese.
Yeah. It's in there by nature for the sole purpose of making sure that baby wants to drink that milk, right? So the baby cow or the grown human us, right? So it's addictive, but we don't really know it. It's just like
Is that related to like opiate morphines?
It's the same receptor sites it's gonna attach to in the brain and nervous system.
Who knew?
Right. Yeah. So that's what it is, man. That's why you full on Ninja Turtle status.
Yeah.
Your name even fits in, Donatello, Raphael, Orlando. So that's what it is.
So
man.
if this job doesn't work out for me, go become a plumber in Wisconsin. That's what we're saying.
The sea green Ninja Turtle. So all right, so let's construct Orlando's. Let's construct a pizza for him that might be all right? So we talked about the cheese. I'm suggesting like a raw goat cheese.
Okay.
I think.
Do they have like a raw goat cheese mozzarella? Is that even possible?
I think it is possible because I think that you make a cheese, like all the different cheeses, it's just a different bacterial culture that they use.
Okay. I have no idea how cheese is actually made.
I had some raw goat cheese. It was either mozzarella or provolone, something that goes on a pizza.
Yeah.
Before. Yeah. And it was, again, the goat cheese didn't affect me as much as the cow's cheese.
Mm-hmm. So we got that, and then you got to make your own tomato sauce. I don't really know. Do you know how to make tomato sauce?
I have my own pizza sauce recipe.
Oh yeah? All right. So
You're
get
solid.
some organic tomatoes, get all that stuff going, and then all right, we're talking
herbs,
about
man.
the herbs.
The herbs.
Yep.
Fresh herbs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe have a little like windowsill garden.
Yeah.
Where you can
Put a little honey in there. That's a good little trick.
Ooh,
yeah.
Orlando. All right.
Add some sweetness.
All right. So now let's talk about the dough. Let's talk about the dough.
That's the tough part.
That is a tough part, but there's things that you can do to make that better. And I think, a lot of people just immediately go to the gluten-free, like, I'll just go to gluten-free. Well, the problem with that is a lot of the gluten-free stuff is just shit.
Yeah.
It's just like all chemicals and corn syrups and like, all right, you don't have gluten, but you have every other bad fucking thing in the world in there. And it's just this soup of chemicals that they tried to make look like bread. So probably better is to go and get some sprouted grain.
Yeah.
Some sprouted grain dough.
Okay.
Because when the wheat sprouts, it naturally lessens the defenses of the actual germ itself. Like wheat, when it's drying up, it puts out, it's trying to protect itself so that it can be a seed for the next harvest. So it gets these really, I don't know, like these phytin layers or these chitin layers or I don't know, some
phytic acid.
Acid, yeah. So it gets that on the germ itself, and it becomes really, really difficult to digest. But as soon as it starts sprouting, it's like, I'm in the promised land, baby.
Yeah.
So it drops all those defenses, and then it becomes a lot easier. Even though it may still have the gluten, I think that's probably the best choice.
Yeah. So these compounds are called lectins, right? And these are, like you said, plants can't get up and run from you, so they have to evolve their own defense mechanism so that they don't get overconsumed. And also, for animals to consume these seed grasses, they want to get replicated, get dispersed somewhere else because they can't get up and disperse. So they want to make it through your digestive system without getting broken down and get pooped out, right? But we found all these fancy ways to put like a bazillion a number of those seeds in our body at one time. So it's going to cause a little bit of a problem. So the lectins have this really interesting ability to, like, if you take a look at your gut lining, if you put your hands together, you interlace your fingers and you look inside, you can basically hold a cup of water, in your hands like that. But the lectins, they go in and they have this really strange ability to trigger your body to secrete something called zonulin, which that compound makes your gut lining open up. So it starts to create these little openings where now the water is going to kind of seep through. And so food shouldn't be being in a complete protein structure, shouldn't be able to pass right through to your bloodstream. But this is what starts to happen by consuming these compounds. And so when whole protein structures get into your bloodstream, it's going to set off an immune response, which is all good. It's like you can eat your bagel, life is good, your immune system will take care of it. but not so. It's the start of a big problem, because when that protein structure, we'll just say the protein structure that sneaks its way in, maybe you had an egg sandwich, right? So you ate the bread, right? And the lectins cause a little bit of a gut permeability, which was also known as leaky gut. And then the egg proteins made their way through. We'll just say it's ABA, right? So your immune system goes and attacks, like, that shouldn't be in here, ABA, take it out. Now here's the issue, is that maybe some of your tissues in your thyroid gland has that same protein structure, right? So your immune system thinks, wait a minute, their thyroid, I just saw this ABA, now it's on his thyroid. It must be a parasite of some sort. It must be some kind of a virus or bacteria. So let me go and destroy it. So your own immune system will start to destroy your thyroid. That's Hashimoto's, okay? Or if it's happening to your knee joint, that's rheumatoid arthritis. Or your lungs, that's asthma. Asthma also has an autoimmune component. It just depends on your body and your genetic predisposition. So this is the root of really all autoimmune issues start in your gut, and the consumption of foods that have these kind of anti-nutrients in them. And then, like you said, the phytic acid, the phytates, other anti-nutrients that basically block your ability to absorb protein, right? And then, why does the dough taste so good? Gluteomorphines. So we've got the casomorphines, we've got these attached to the morphine receptor sites.
People are helpless to pizza with all
Right.
those drugs in them.
It's crazy, But the thing is, it's delicious. It's absolutely delicious. But, it's just being able to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and say, okay, the way we're doing stuff is not working. Let me upgrade things. So he already mentioned, like, getting sprouted grains to make your dough. Some of the gluten-free stuff is okay. You just got to pay attention to the ingredients, maybe like some rice flour. Or if somebody wants to do like a, more of a, quote, paleo thing plus cheese, there was a cool recipe that we did. My wife made. It was like the crust was actually ground beef mixed with cauliflower, and the cheese was in the crust.
I could get into that.
Right? So it was phenomenal, right? And so we just popped that in the oven and put the toppings on top, and it was all good.
That connection that you were drawing between how the immune response is triggered from, gut permeability is something I hadn't really made that connection before, but it makes perfect sense. I mean, the immune system is designed to identify threat and then train to defeat that threat.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
like the T cells and the B cells identify something and then they replicate, through this whole process of, that works in the gut that helps them fight infections and helps them do all these things. But if they're identifying these proteins as threats, then they find them elsewhere in the body, it makes perfect sense why you get all of these autoimmune disorders.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty scary shit.
The research indicates that in 100% of people, the zonulin is activated when you consume wheat. It just depends on your genetic disposition to how much of symptoms do you notice. And for some people, like for me, I grew up eating it, Wonder Bread, Bunny Bread, all of that stuff.
Bunny bread.
Yeah, that's what I
Lots of
said.
gluteomorphines in that.
Oh, man, the whole
thing.
extra,
You could grind it and inject that bunny bread.
But now, if I have a substantial meal with wheat, like it breaks my skin out, like I'll immediately notice some kind of a response. It's just like, wow. But it's not horrible. It's just like, but if you do that every day, day after day, like a lot of people are doing, basing their diet on, low fat, whole grain foods, it could be a little bit of a problem. But again, you got to figure out what works for you. But I just want to make sure everybody knows the mechanism that can be causing them problems and they don't know it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the world just don't, and until I started working here, like I thought I was eating healthy. I'd like buy a lean cuisine or something.
Yeah.
And like, oh, this is good. This is good stuff, right? I mean,
Look, low fat calories.
Yeah, it says right there on the box. But I think that's a big problem, is that a lot of people don't realize how you're supposed to feel after a meal. They go their whole lives eating just whatever, McDonald's, whatever, and the lean cuisines, thinking they're really healthy for you, and they feel horrible after they eat. They feel, oh, this is normal life, They don't get it until you go on a little.
It's because of the government, man. It's the government, and just I went to a traditional university, and this is the crazy thing. When I initially went to college, so I chose to go pre-med, But then after a couple months, I opted out because I found I didn't like science very much. But now I love it, you know? It's just the way I was taught. But anyways, it was not on my track to take nutrition, right? But it was an elective, and my very first semester in college, I took a nutrition class. And it was this big auditorium class. The teacher walked in, his belly walked in first. You know, I was just like, wow. And I didn't make the connection. I was just like, because I just knew that the nutrition, maybe it can help you to look better. I was like, oh, so he's gonna tell me how to look good, huh? You know. But anyway, so he proceeded to disseminate this information, which the thing was, I know he was following it. You know, he was working hard, but he wasn't acknowledging the fact that it wasn't working. You know, so we were taught to teach our clients to consume 7 to 11 servings of grains every day, right? Like, this is the basis of your diet, should be grains, which really, in reality, this is poverty food. You know, our hunter-gatherer ancestors, this whole concept of agriculture is even a newer thing in human evolution. You know, like, if we look at the span, potentially millions of years of evolution, and then like 10,000 years of agriculture, if it was like the size of like the Bible, the human story, it's like 2 pages that we've been consuming grains like this. You know, so it might cause some problems, you know. So anyways, to base your diet on that, but also the fact that these are carbohydrate-based foods. So carbohydrates naturally drive the function of insulin. And that's awesome if you're trying to put on size or you want to, you know, gain some muscle to utilize insulin, you know, especially post-workout. This would be a great time to have, you know, if you want to have some grains. But for the average person, consuming this stuff, especially like it's dessert for breakfast. You know what I'm saying? We're waking up, bagels. I saw there's a bagel delivery, you know, when I was driving in here.
Don't tell the office that. We're going to get bagel deliveries all over.
Donuts, you know, pancakes, toast, all that stuff. So you're immediately activating insulin when you wake up in the morning because you believe you should be eating grains. It should be the base of your diet, low-fat bagel, right? And you're more insulin sensitive in the morning as well. So that's going to be an insulin sensitivity. The opposite of that is insulin resistance. Okay, so if you're really heightening that insulin response in the morning, you're going to have a greater propensity to store belly fat. You know, it just kind of is what it is. So a big takeaway for everybody is also, if you're going to consume carbs, to probably do it later in the day, you know, ideally for your evening meal, because that's something that our hunter-gatherer ancestors
So am I messing up by having oat bran in the morning?
Damn, people still do that?
Like making oat bran like with some fruit and stuff like that?
That's some 80-year-old.
I thought I was doing good.
Grape nuts?
Stuff.
That weight giving you trouble?
No trouble at all. That's Junior. I always keep trim and fit. Bye, dear.
You must feed him Post-Grape Nuts, the high-protein cereal.
Sure. We always start our day with a high-protein breakfast, like grape nuts with milk and sugar.
You know, a lot of people don't realize grape nuts give you more protein per spoonful than any other cereal.
30% more.
And what a flavor. That exclusive, different grape nuts flavor is so nut-like and crisp.
That's why grape nuts are just a little bit better than any other cereal.
Most any cereal is fine with me, as long as you spell it P-O-S-T, 'cause all Post cereals happen to be
Just a little better.
a little bit better, a little bit better than any other cereal happens to be.
Grape nuts give you 30% more protein per spoonful than any other cereal.
No, not the cereal. It's like actual oat
I know
bran.
what you said.
Like
Yeah.
oat bran. I make my own little oatmeal. Is that not good?
Are your poops like phenomenal with that?
No.
Stop doing it. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, because people would consume bran and things like that just with the idea like this is gonna have some epic.
Damn it! I need to
poops.
go to the grocery store.
Yeah. So in the morning, the funny thing is like, just, you know, this past weekend, I think it was yesterday, I did a talk for Paleo FX, and I talked about this evolutionary productivity from a standpoint of productivity, what's going on with evolution. And early hunter-gatherers really didn't have a concept of breakfast. You know, a lot of times they just kind of wake up and you're more mentally sharp when you're a little hungry, you know, because it's like it helps you to focus on finding food.
Well, you've just had your little intermittent fast for the night.
Right, exactly. And so what they would do is get up, do their job, which they worked approximately, and there's still hunter-gatherer tribes today that they study, and maybe 14 hours a week. is their work week, and the rest of the time is spent in leisure. In our society today, if you work 40 hours a week, you're a little bitch. Like, that's not enough, you know? So we're not as productive because also, you know, our brains just aren't functioning optimally because, you know, we're getting up and most of the time we're eating a big-ass breakfast or consuming carbohydrates.
Oat bran.
Yeah, oat bran. And it's taking you down a few notches, you know? So,
Still learning, always.
the ideal thing for breakfast is going to be higher fat and protein and non-starchy vegetables. Like, if you really want to crush it,
It's hard to eat vegetables for breakfast, man.
and so it is, you know, and so it is. But we've got to change the paradigm, you know, like we've grown up, you grew up like I did. It's dessert for breakfast. You've got to change the paradigm. Breakfast is just a regular meal, you know, and you've got an opportunity to, you know, create your physical landscape with every meal you eat.
I've been in some breakfast scenarios where people always look at me funny because I've never been one that's like breakfast, and it's because of that I don't feel good when I have any of these like really grainy things. So I'll go to like lunch for breakfast. So people will see me making like a grass-fed burger with a fried egg and bacon and avocado and maybe like one piece of bread on the bottom just to hold it all together. You know, keep it together, fucking burger. and people look at me like, you're eating a burger for breakfast? You're crazy. I was like, you're eating cereal? Like, you know, like I feel really good when I do that. You know, get the avocado and the egg and the burger and the bacon. It's all this fat and protein, and I feel great. You know, and everybody else is dragging around me, and I'm like, man, I gotta eat burgers for breakfast more often.
I mean, I would eat eggs every single day, but I'm still like, I don't know if this is like still old school thought, but I'm still like really scared of eggs. Yeah. Like the yolks and stuff like that.
No, this is great,
man. Because I come from
man.
a family of like heart disease.
Yeah, a lot of people.
I'm still like kind of worried about it.
That's phenomenal you brought that up because a lot of people do have that fear. And I had that same fear, you know, especially having a university setting where they're telling me cholesterol is like the worst thing ever. And the reality is if people really dig around into the research, it's just not true. It's ridiculous. Here's the thing. 50% of the people who have cardiac arrest or have heart disease don't have high cholesterol. So that tells you right there, it's not the causative factor, right? And here's the even more powerful thing, especially for, well, this is for anybody, men and women, but especially for guys. Cholesterol is the seed of building your sex hormones. Right?
Need more cholesterol.
So your testosterone is based on cholesterol. So if you're not consuming that in your diet, your body does make about a teaspoon a day. Okay. You know, your liver in particular is going to help in that production of cholesterol, but it's an arduous process. If you can get some in dietarily, it's giving you a huge leverage point to be able to build these sex hormones and just to be, you know, the greatest version of yourself. You know, so this whole thing was really based on some bad science, and it's really kind of a catalyst for this multi-billion-dollar statin industry, you know. And now if people want to look into this as well, just Google statins and diabetes. You know, we're looking at a 30+% increase in your risk of diabetes by taking statins because you're screwing up the function of your liver, which your liver is, it's known as a second brain. It's probably, it's one of the most important, like you can't get a liverectomy, you know, like you need that bad boy. Liver, right? You need it to live, man. It's a huge component of your body's ability to regulate fat. It breaks down insulin, you know, so we talked a little bit about it earlier. Insulin opens up your cells so it can store potentially more fat, right? So if you just got a bunch of insulin swimming around in your system, it's going to screw stuff up. Your liver breaks insulin down, right? It produces certain hormones to help you to burn fat as well. And also your liver can do a process called lipogenesis. It can straight up create fat if you do the wrong things to it, you know. So, and all this stuff ties together, you know. It's so powerful.
Yeah, that idea of, you know, egg whites. I'll still go to some places and they'll have egg whites. Like there's a really nice spa in Sedona, you know, and I'm thinking like, it's Sedona, people are with it, they're conscious, they'll get it. And you'll go there, I'll go there for breakfast, and it's like everything, egg white omelet, egg white this, and I'm just looking at them like, you just haven't paid attention in the last 5 years, or you're just stubborn, or whatever. It's because, you know, the yolks are a super important part of the egg. That's what makes that egg a complete and really valuable protein.
But why would you do that to yourself and just eat egg whites anyway?
Egg whites are terrible.
You know, that was like
suffering is involved in you being healthy.
I'll still catch people all the time. Yeah. You know, it's like people, these things they get in early. they get in your mind early. They're like a little virus that's planted in there early, and it's really hard to unwind that from people, even when, like he says, all the science is pointing to the fact that the body needs healthy cholesterol, even to manage the so-called bad cholesterol and to produce hormones and all of these different functions. But still, people are like, I'm gonna go with the egg whites. I'm gonna make a good choice.
The healthy
today.
choice. Yeah, and what you want to do ideally though is to keep the yolk intact if you can.
So don't scramble.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. So I'll give you an example with that in
He's
a minute.
just being
but
really confusing.
Yolk intact.
Yeah, so
Leave it
that
alone.
would mean like over easy,
Okay.
sunny side up, poached eggs. Ideally to get all of the, because just like heating the olive oil, those fat soluble vitamins and minerals and just the compounds of fat anyways, they get degraded when you heat them. It's the name of the game. So that's the ideal way to do it. However, if you're going to scramble your eggs, you can add in, because it's going to be pro-oxidation when you cook the yolk, especially. So you're going to have more reactive oxygen species, or just kind of these free radical things happen in your body. A little trick to kind of buffer that is to add in some antioxidants into your scrambled eggs. So turmeric, add in some turmeric. It actually tastes really good with eggs. You know,
Have
salt
our
and pepper.
matcha chai latte with the eggs.
I
That's
do
got
do that.
turmeric, and
I
it's got
do.
matcha, and it's got ginger,
Oh,
and it's got all kinds
perfect.
of antioxidants in there.
So I did have a good breakfast this week then, because I had the matcha tea with 3 eggs
Yeah.
for breakfast right before my soccer game, and I felt really good.
You felt
I
good.
felt good.
Boom.
Right before athletic event too, you know. Whereas like we grew up carving it up right before a football game, you know, or a basketball game. You know, we have a big muscatoli dinner, and then I'm over there, you know, waiting to go in for my play, you know, and yawning. You know what I'm saying, over there on the sidelines. When you're in the game, of course, it's the adrenaline, but just when you're waiting around for the next play or whatever, man, I'm over there yawning because we just basically had this huge sugar spike and then went hypoglycemic, you know, by having a pasta dinner before
You
the
just
game.
needed more Gatorade, sir.
Right, exactly.
You just needed
Exactly.
a sugary sports drink.
Powerade or crunk juice. I don't even know what people are drinking now, man. The kids, man, I can't even imagine. Can't
Yeah.
even imagine.
Yeah, not wise. All right, so let's talk a little bit. We don't have too much time left, but let's talk about, like, let's say your gut is just a mess. You've been eating all this crazy stuff. You know, what's your first plan on the gut repair? You know, let's get everything back in order.
Yeah. The number one thing, and this is so simple, this is so absurdly simple, is to remove the cause. Just remove the cause of the disease in the first place. So we don't have to treat symptoms. I don't have to take an allopathic approach and say, you know, take this supplement for this symptom or take this drug for this symptom. It's still allopathic thinking, instead of just remove the cause so there's no symptom. So the first thing that I would do, especially if anybody's dealing with autoimmune stuff or just digestive distress, is pull out the top 4 typical foods and then add them back in later, one at a time, to test how your body responds. Those top 4 kind of trigger foods: dairy, wheat, legumes, and just processed sugar of any sort. So just pull those things out, and just, you're probably going to feel good. You're probably going to lose a lot of the kind of puffiness and inflammation you're carrying around, and then add them back in later. You know, bread might not be the thing that's causing you problems, you know, and that's all good for you, you know, or, you know, but by doing that, we're eliminating the cause, a big part. And if somebody's really struggling with this stuff, I mean, there's other things that are potential triggers as well, like nightshades, eggs for some people because of what I talked about earlier, them sneaking in with other foods. Even chicken can be a problem for some people.
Oh, that's a tough one. You
Yeah.
pull that one out last.
Yeah, I'm not saying to do that.
That's the last
You can't
card.
eat chicken.
I
What do you
rarely-
eat?
That's the last card you remove from the deck.
In my
for
practice,
sure.
I've rarely had to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like a handful of times versus hundreds of times with the other foods. So that's the number one thing, is to remove the cause. After that, it really starts to get into the individual, you know. So if I find out, for example, somebody wasn't breastfed, you know, like maybe we need to do something to kind of reformat their immune system.
First of all, more hugs.
I've always had a problem with hugging.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a correlation there.
Yeah.
So, you know,
You're a
everybody-
distant hugger,
If
man.
anybody's listening and they see Orlando, give him a nice warm hug.
God.
Say it's okay.
Especially if you're female, just give him a good hug.
Tell
stick
him-
you know,
Tell
get
him
in
it's
there.
okay. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. So,
It's not your fault.
Look at me, son. It's not your fault.
How was breastfed, man?
colostrum. So bovine colostrum, grass-fed, cold processed, all that good stuff might be something to consider. But again, it depends on you if you can even tolerate dairy. Another thing would be, and this is kind of like super popular today, is probiotics. So repopulating your gut with the good guys. And again, this is still going to be individual what's going to work for you. You know, it might be you need more bifidus, you know, for example. So I would generally recommend people to work with a practitioner to kind of help to figure this stuff out. But probiotics would be really important to help to just get the good guys in control of your system, because chances are the bad guys are running the ship. And you have upwards of 10 times more bacteria than you have human cells. You know, so you're mostly bacteria, which is crazy. So you want to make sure that it's the good guys running your ship and not, you know.
And when you're doing these things, like when you're starting to pull these things like sugar out of your diet and some of these bad grains out of your diet, you're going to be severely weakening the bad bacteria. Things like Candida albicans, things that have kind of taken hold in your stomach, they're going to those populations are going to start dying off just because you're not feeding them at the same rate that you formerly were, that sustained this kind of massive overgrowth. And as you're doing that, if at the same time you're helping repopulate with, you know, the right bacteria, the probiotics, you can really have a nice swing effect. Whereas the Candida are dying, the repopulation of your healthy gut flora is coming into play, and that can be super helpful. And not only probiotic supplements, but of course, you know, fermented foods. There's this Kavita, which I'm drinking right now, which is probiotic. Yeah, it's a probiotic coconut water. I think it comes from coconut or something like that. And then there's, of course, kombucha. And there's kimchi, which is cabbage, or sauerkraut, which is fermented cabbage. And there's all kinds. And then, of course, yogurt, which is fermented milk, which actually is another way that a lot of people can tolerate dairy better, is when it's fermented and the friendly bacteria start to break it down a little bit. It gets a lot easier on the stomach to take. And there's actually one bread which actually has part of that process in it as well, and it's sourdough. The sourness is actually the fermentation of the dough, which generally makes that a little easier to digest. So if you got to go for some bread, and sourdough's a delicious one, that one might be a little bit better for you than some of these other ones, because it has started that fermentation process. So the bacteria's already done some of the work for you, so your gut doesn't have to do it all the way.
Smart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of changes to make.
We all do, man, and that's
every
it.
time I think I get it, I realize I still don't.
Yeah, and I
always
think
something.
one of the other big things too is there's going to be nights where we're just not going to be able to do that. And when you have those nights, just say, you know what, this is one of these nights.
Yes.
I'm going to be okay. I've survived a million times before in the past. I'm going to enjoy myself.
Yes.
I'm not going to stress. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm going to take that invisible whip that I have in my hand. I'm not going to use it, you know, to punish myself for this meal. Just say, it's all good. You know, this is a celebration. This is a, you know, special night. I'm going to really enjoy it. And make sure that you give yourself that too.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, just really quick to kind of put a bow on that one is the research shows that your mood actually dictates so much about the way that food affects your body, or that alcohol affects your body.
Let's leave alcohol alone.
Okay, yeah, let's not even bring that in.
this,
so your mood truly does, even if it even affects the way the food tastes or the wine tastes. So let me not talk about wine. So just by your mood. So it's really important, and just like you said, you know, just not being super neurotic about this stuff. Have the knowledge and apply it, obviously, but just understand, like, you live in the world, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of pizzas you're going to come across, you know, and this is what Digest Tech is for too as well. You know, you got that in your back pocket, have a couple of those, enjoy yourself, you know, but just on a general day-to-day, you know, do the best that you can, which for a lot of us, it's way better than what we're doing. You know, so just step up to the plate, but also allow yourself to have some fun.
Boom shakalaka!
All right.
Thank
well,
you,
next
everybody.
time you come through, I'll let you know how life is.
Awesome, with the whole eggs and everything.
Whole eggs.
Yeah.
Ditching the oat bran.
I like the idea of the burger for breakfast.
For breakfast.
I'm
We
going
got
for
some
that.
pizza options.
No more granddad food, man. It's prunes and oat bran. No more.
Shawn, where can people find you, my brother?
People can check me out online at themodelhealthshow.com.
One of my favorite podcasts, by the way. Please definitely check it out. It's badass.
Thank you, man. Yeah, so people can check out the show on iTunes. It's called The Model Health Show. We've been featured many times in #1 fitness and nutrition podcasts, which I'm blown away to be able to say that. We really focus on, like, if it's diabetes, like, we'll actually dive in and break that whole thing down, reverse engineer it so people understand how it's created and also solutions for it. But we do it in a fun way. So we've got shows on, just general fat loss stuff, but the best information possible, depression, body image stuff. I mean, you name it. So thank you for that, man. So you can check me out on iTunes or Stitcher, any place you listen to your podcast. My home online is themodelhealthshow.com. I'm kind of new to the social game, but I'm at Shawn Model on Twitter and Instagram. So
that means he's not going to respond to shit. So.
No, I'm super respond to people because it's, people can get to me, and it's amazing, man. I love it.
Yeah, awesome. And also, you can buy his badass book, Sleep Smarter, at Onnit. It's one of the few books that we carry because it's like just a wealth of information, easy read, entertaining, and it'll get your sleep game right.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely check that one out too. Thanks.
All right, much love, everybody. We'll be back soon with Ben Greenfield. Peace.